Hi, I'm Brenda Swenson, and I have a little tip for you in regards to your watercolor palette. One of my favorite palettes is the Pike Palette. The reason that I like it is that I have a very large mixing area where I can have a large puddle of paint to pull from for an entire painting. What I've found is with all new palettes, not just a Pike palette, is that they come with a little bit of a shine on them. That is, I don't know if it's the manufacturing or just being new that they're very shiny. But with that shine on the surface, your paint has a tendency to bead up and it doesn't lay down and give you a nice mixture. So before I set up a palette, I always use a little bit of just like a soft scrub. It's a general cleaner that you can find in the grocery store. And I lightly just clean the surface. And once I get that all done, then I rinse it off real well because you don't want that getting into your paint. But once I've done that, what I find is that my pigments lay down beautifully on my palette and they don't bead up, and I have better mixing happening here. Another tip with the palette is that I always use a sponge when I paint. Number one, when I'm painting, I go from my water into the sponge to kind of contain how much water I'm bringing into my palette. But also, when I get ready to close up my palette at the end of a painting period, I will rinse out the sponge real good, and I'll put a slightly damp sponge inside my palette. Now, I live in Southern California. We're a little bit dry, and this helps keep my paints nice and juicy in between painting sessions. If you happen to live in a warmer climate and you may not be going back to your palette for a couple months or so, you may not want to do that. You're going to have to kind of gauge it. But I find if you're using your palette on a regular basis, it's a wonderful way to keep your paints moist, juicy, and ready to go first thing. I hope this tip has helped.